Hi guys, welcome back to Skyline Stroll. Today we're going to be talking about the dark side of keeping to yourself, the cost of loneliness and isolation, and what it can do for and to you. So, it's snowing out, and I figured with people having a chance of getting snowed into their homes, I would take a walk in the Winter Wonderland and record a video about isolation because we might have a week of it ahead of us, possibly. So, let's have a good walk, let's enjoy the weather, and talk about a kind of serious subject. So, as I mentioned, we're discussing isolation, loneliness. We're going to talk about pros and cons of being independent, being alone, being with other people, why you should look to strive for a healthy balance of both. And for starters, I'm going to give you 3 pros and 3 cons to keeping to yourself. So the first 3 pros are going to be, we'll start with the positive. You're gonna get more peace and quiet, for one, more time to reflect, more time to just work on yourself, so forth. This is definitely a perk of keeping to yourself. A second perk is going to be no drama. If you're not really interacting with a lot of people, there just isn't going to be a lot of drama. You're not going to have people judging you and applying their biases to you as often. And that's a good 2 to start. A third is going to be less responsibility. A lot of times, the more people we choose to get close to and interact with, the more responsibility we passively take on in our life, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but can be depending on your life circumstances. So with this one, it's kind of a silver-lined issue. And then for the 3 perks, we have the 3 cons. We just did the 3 perks. The 3 cons are going to be, you have an increased chance of depression. There's just studies showing that while you're in self-isolation, a lot of people get really depressed. And the longer the isolation goes on, the more depressed they get. And so you have to kind of keep an eye on that. We can't always be around the people we want to, but you can still make an effort to try and tend to your mind when you have to keep to yourself, when you are in a situation where you're just around people you're not compatible with, because being lonely isn't actually about being alone. You can be very lonely in a room full of people, as I'm sure most of you know, and it's about being around people who genuinely understand you an amount and add something positive to your life. And I see a lot of toxic people that won't cut off other toxic people, and it's because I think they feel understood. Why would they cut someone out that understands what they think? So that's one. I went on a little tangent there. Let's get to the second con. Your mind can become quite the echo chamber. When you have people you discuss your feelings, thoughts, and opinions with, they'll challenge those thoughts and opinions, and that's not a bad thing. Your opinions and thoughts should be challenged both by yourself and others. So when you're spending a lot of time in independence, it can he stopped running right as I flipped the camera. Thanks, buddy. But it can lead you to have really uncontested opinions and thoughts and just get really set in your own ways, really caught in your own routine, unable to adapt. We should have room in our life for difference of opinion. It can help us to be a better person all around. People can help challenge some of our not so good traits and can help us find a little more peace and quiet in each and every day. And it's a big challenge to not let your own thoughts kind of set in stone and really make you a repetitive and stagnant person, actually. So other people kind of help with this. And the third thing is you lose out on some of the extra meaning that other people add. I mentioned how one of the perks was you have less responsibility with less people in your life, but also that is kind of at the same time a con, because responsibility, caring for others, that stuff will add some genuine meaning to your life. And so if you're very independent, very self-sufficient, very just want to be on your own, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Some people are actually like that, but people can be a great source of like meaning and reason to go about your day. So try and accept the faults of others. Everyone has faults, including ourselves. That's fine. And if we genuinely like care about others, then we will make some room for the faults of others in our life. My dog dropped his scarf. And by having that patience to tolerate somebody's flaw and still care about them and love them in spite of it, like, that shit's awesome. Everyone who's had that from another person probably remarks how that person is one of the like most reliable and cherished people in their lives. So being able to do that for others can add some actual meaning to your life. Now, you shouldn't do that for every single person you meet. Some people don't have your best interest at heart, and because of that, why would you try to be a good friend to them? Because they're not a good friend to you, right? This can be a family member, a friend, a coworker, you name it, anyone. And that's okay. But when you keep to yourself too much, the chances of getting depressed go up immensely. I was watching a video earlier that said it can, for extended periods of time, do damage to your brain similar to like Alzheimer's. Now, at the same time, if you're like completely alone in a room full of people, I imagine this same isolation damage probably occurs to some degree, where you're just like, you don't really know how to communicate, and because of that, you have just bad social interactions that reinforce this kind of, oh, I should keep to myself mindset, which cause you to have more bad social interactions, creating a vicious cycle of wishing, oh, I wish I could find people like me I could connect with. The people like you could connect with, you shooed them away earlier. Whoops. And at the same time, when you become depressed, it becomes harder and harder to maintain positive thinking. And for connecting with people, a little bit of positivity is just required. So when you get depressed and you just can't find that source of positivity, one thing you can do is gratitude journaling, which I mentioned in a previous video. It'll just force you every time you do it to be a little more positive. And if you're being a little more positive, then you're going to find that people are more like they find you more approachable, they're more open and interactive with you. If you're just always bringing the doom and gloom, people are just going to be a little closed off to you. So even when you look outside at chaos happening around you and online, understand it's no excuse to become the doomer of all doomers. It's all the more motivation to hold on to some kind of positivity, because that is needed right now, and people want that. People want positive people around. So try to maintain that even when you have to kind of keep to yourself. And don't settle for people. Like I said, if you're in a room full of people that don't understand you, you're still going to feel really lonely. So keep searching. I used to hear someone say, go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. You may not find too many spots that match that criteria, but when you do, make a genuine effort to go to those spots again. And once you're in this point where you've been isolating for oh so long, and you struggle to like communicate even with people you already know and stuff, the good news is, as they've done research on the brain, you can completely recover entirely. You can completely come back from this if this happens to you. If you become really like closed in and antisocial, you can completely recover from this, and you can have the social life you wanted and or used to have if you did. And if you don't, that's okay. And you don't need a lot of people. You need a couple people that really add a difference to your day. So try to be choosy with who you do accept, because it is all right to be afraid to be alone, but it's not all right to compromise on who you are out of that fear. So don't compromise. I mean, compromise a little. Like I said, nobody's perfect. We need to learn to accept faults and still realize that those people are wonderful, even with their faults. Their faults add to their wonderfulness, believe it or not, even when it really doesn't seem like it. And I mean, yeah, some people are just bad, and you shouldn't let the bad people linger on in your life. But at the same time, they're actually a minority. The like just terrible people in the world, they're actually a minority. So don't concern yourself with, oh, every other person's out to get me. That's your past speaking. That's trauma speaking. Like, most people are not just, oh, how do I get one over on you? Haha. Sure, like, business kind of does that, and it makes it seem like people do that, but there's a line there, guys. And so once you've entered this space of just, you've isolated, and you don't know how to reconnect, it's simple. I've said this in a prior video. The cost of entry is embarrassment. Go to a gathering, an event, go hang out with some friends you haven't seen in a while, and let those first couple interactions of doing that just be genuinely awkward. Let them be a little awkward, and you'll warm up over time with each interaction. And as people warm up to you, you'll feel better about doing it. People genuinely, they're going through some of the same stuff right now. We're all kind of, with the long work weeks and the tons of internet access and limited free time, we're all kind of forced to keep to ourselves almost a little bit right now, just by how the world's operating. And so don't hold a grudge on your people that are busy and can't really reach out. I'm sure they'll be happy the next time they get a chance to cross paths with you, right? And when you get the chance, don't shoot down every other social event. Don't be like, oh, maybe next time. I just don't really feel like going. Of course you don't feel like going. You have a habit of isolation. You have a habit of sticking to yourself. If you want to actually interact, if your loneliness is bothering you, then you're gonna have to break that habit, and that's gonna feel uncomfortable at first. Those first couple outings are gonna be not fun. Not fun. Like, they can be a little fun, you can have fun at them, but you're going to be sitting there like, oh, I just want to go sit in a corner and, like, watch YouTube or watch Reels or just go to bed and power through. And I mean, if you're actually just not having fun with something, don't make yourself do it. But if you're finding you're just a little out of your comfort zone, that's good. You need some of that to help you kind of get back up on your social feet a little bit. And so the other thing is, like I said, some of these people going through it, they'll warm up to you as you come around more consistently and they get more chances to interact with you and know you better. That will help them kind of warm back up to you. And that will reinforce the positive social interaction, which is what you need. Bonds, deep bonds, they're not built over a day. You don't just lock eyes with somebody and know they're going to be your best friend for the rest of your life or your lover for the rest of your life. Those bonds are built upon every single day. Every day we either take away from or contribute to the strength of those bonds, passively or actively, and whichever we do is entirely up to us, and we should make an appropriate decision case by case with each person. So try and understand that Rome was not built in a day, and neither was my best friendship or yours or whoever else's. It genuinely took some time of getting to know that person, consistently coming around and spending some time together, just hanging out as people, right? So with that, I think I want to conclude with just some footage of like the snowy area and have just a little sequence of minor quiet where maybe I had a couple of thoughts that slipped my mind while I was talking earlier. So here we are. We're just gonna round the corner a bit. I'm actually loving it out here. I'm a huge fan of the snow. I've been missing it. It hasn't snowed much the last couple of years. So I'm really loving it out here today. And this has been my favorite walk to film a video on yet. I'm so glad to be out here in the snow. So let's get some... Hey, buddy. I do just believe this to be the prettiest weather. Simply the prettiest weather that happens. Alright guys, so some other things to talk about are understanding the difference between physical and mental loneliness. Like, I kind of touched on it by talking about like being around people and still feeling lonely. That will still add something to your interacting with people in general. Ooh, almost slipped. It's a little slick. But understanding which type of... Ooh, yeah, it is certainly slick. A little bit of a downhill incline, so I don't have my best pair of shoes on. I'm going to get over here and show the woods anyways. It's a prettier view. So shout out to the couple of people who are actually watching my content and find it interesting. If y'all want to leave me comments giving me some pointers, that would be much appreciated. And if not, I'm just gonna keep talking about things that come to mind and trying to work on my content. So let's just do a little more down the street. And so once you've decided the difference between emotional and physical loneliness, then you can actually figure out what you need to do to approach that. If you have a close friend that is not so close, like in a physical space, like let's say they moved a dozen states away, like reach out to them on the phone more. Schedule like a weekly call. That stuff will help you break your isolation. And the more you isolate, the easier it gets to isolate. So figure out where your needs actually lie. And then you can kind of make alterations based off what you actually need. It's all right to have alone time. In fact, I think we all require a little more of that than we get in the modern age. We like to fill our alone time with noise like I'm making right now. And that's not all bad, but a little bit of actual alone time is good. So learning how to balance these two things is a really tricky thing to do as a young adult. But here in the digital age, we still have to develop this skill like any other. So let's all try and reach out to somebody we care about. Like maybe just a friend that you care about a bunch but haven't talked to in a while. Maybe just give them a reach out and say, hey, how have you been? I haven't heard from you. What are you up to? See what happens. And in the meantime, you guys have a lovely night, and I'll see you in the next Skyline Stroll.